I will send you a video on the theme successfully observing the entire process of a supernova explosion for the first time in history. On January 7, 2022, it was announced that for the first time in history, the entire process of a red supergiant star exploding as a supernova had been observed, making it big news. To better understand this topic, let's briefly review the life cycle of stars and supernova explosions. The central part of a celestial body called a star, which shines on its own like the sun, becomes a superhot and superhigh-pressure environment due to its own gravity, creating the conditions for a reaction called nuclear fusion, which becomes the energy source of the star. In nuclear fusion that occurs in the center of a star, a reaction occurs where hydrogen, the lightest element, is consumed first, followed by the production of helium, the next lightest element after hydrogen. When hydrogen is exhausted, helium is consumed to produce carbon, and then heavier elements are consumed and produced as fuel, in a process where heavier elements are gradually produced through nuclear fusion. However, the heavier the element, the higher the temperature and pressure required for nuclear fusion to occur, so even if hydrogen fusion can be started initially, if the star has relatively low mass and the temperature and pressure at its center are not very high, nuclear fusion stops at some intermediate stage. In this way, in the process of generating heavy elements step by step inside a star through nuclear fusion, if the star does not have enough mass and nuclear fusion stops at some point, the remaining burned-out star is called a white dwarf. On the other hand, in the center of a star with sufficient mass, the reaction continues until iron is finally generated by nuclear fusion, and no more nuclear fusion reactions occur. During this process, the star expands and evolves into a giant and low-temperature star called a red supergiant. While a star maintains its shape by balancing the force of expanding from the inside due to nuclear fusion and the gravity pulling it inward, when nuclear fusion suddenly stops with the generation of iron, it loses the force to counteract gravity and its core is rapidly compressed. The rapidly compressed core of the star becomes a celestial body called a neutron star with super high density. The resulting shock causes a huge explosion of super high energy, called a Type II supernova explosion. It is thought that the necessary mass to experience this kind of ending is 8 times that of the Sun. Therefore, the Sun does not have enough mass to cause a supernova explosion, and is thought to eventually end its life as a burned-out white dwarf. The above is the theory of the evolution of stars that humans currently understand, as well as the types of stars that lead to supernova explosions. And as such a theory, it has been thought that high-mass stars do not undergo major explosions even just before a supernova, but rather they have a higher likelihood of causing a sudden supernova explosion while remaining relatively calm. To know how a high-mass star that causes a supernova explosion behaves just before the explosion, one must observe the actual event. However, the lifespan of high-mass stars that cause supernova explosions is relatively short for a star, ranging from tens of thousands to tens of millions of years, and the supernova explosion that occurs at the end of their lives is a very rare phenomenon. Specifically, in a giant galaxy like the Milky Way where billions of stars gather, it only occurs once every few decades. Furthermore, it is not even clear whether there are any phenomena that can be called precursors to the explosion caused by celestial bodies that are close to experiencing a supernova, so humans cannot predict stars that are likely to undergo a supernova and concentrate on observing them. For these reasons, all previous observations of Type II supernovae occurred after they became bright, and none have captured the entire process from before the explosion occurred, and we still do not know for sure about the activity just before the explosion. An astronomer team successfully observed a red supergiant that causes a Type II supernova from 130 days before the explosion, capturing the entire process from just before the explosion to after it occurred, which is the first time in history this has been accomplished. The red supergiant that caused the supernova discussed in this article is in a galaxy called NGC 5731, 120 million light-years away from Earth, and the supernova is named SN 2020 TLF. The red supergiant that caused the supernova SN 2020 TLF was first discovered in the summer of 2020 and then experienced a supernova explosion in the fall of the same year. As shown in the reconstruction video of the red supergiant's activity, which is currently being played, it was found that the red supergiant had already been emitting radiation and gas intensely and was already shining more brightly than usual several months before the explosion. While observing the progression of such a singularly active star, it was discovered that it would undergo a supernova explosion several months later. Observations continued after the supernova explosion, and it was found that the red supergiant that caused the explosion had a mass of about 10 times that of the Sun. The most significant discovery this time is that it was revealed that the internal structure of the red supergiant had changed significantly, and it was very active several months before the supernova explosion. Until now, the theory was that the period just before a supernova explosion was calm until the moment of the explosion. With this discovery, humans have finally learned how red supergiants behave before a supernova explosion, and this could be a significant step forward in predicting and preparing for such events. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. Let's meet again in the next video. Bye.